Hello all, welcome to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy with this Sureka Bhaskar. So this session is actually going to be slightly different from our daily news analysis where we actually tend to understand a particular topic in detail, but we need to understand that when it comes to the prelims as well as the mains examination, that is specifically the mains examination, it actually narrows down to what is your understanding level and how you can actually reproduce whatever you have prepared in the examination, okay, in order to secure marks, because ultimately your mains examination is actually going to decide your ranking as well as the postings, etc. So over here, as all of you know, that the mains examination of 2024 actually has been completed. So in the backdrop of which we will be, as you can see, we will be discussing about specifically the questions that have been asked with respect to that of environment and ecology as well as disaster management. Okay, so this is what we'll be discussing about. So this is me, Sureka Bhaskar, and here I will actually run you through on how to basically approach a particular question when asked in an examination, post which we will actually discuss about how can you further enhance the flow of the question, how can your presentation be better, what are the points that you need to actually state, how different can your introduction be. So mastering this structure of the answer writing, you can actually decode any of the questions that can be asked in your examination. Okay, so now let us move ahead with the discussion. Okay, so there have been 4 questions that have been asked in the environment and ecology section as well as disaster management. Okay, so this particular discussion becomes very important because it is actually going to give you an approach and a broader understanding on how structured your answer should actually be for any of the question, for any of the subject, in any of the section in your mains examination. Because basically, if you see, prelims examination is about recollecting and spotting the right answer, but mains examination is about recollecting and reproducing in a sequential flow with a lot of time constraints. So how do you manage that is what first we will discuss, post which I'll actually give you and take you through the questions that have been asked in the examination and give you insights on how to handle those particular questions. Okay, so this is going to be more of an interactive session, and if you have any doubts with respect to that, the same you can shoot out and we can resolve eventually. So the 7th question that has actually been appeared in your GS3 paper is from environment and ecology. Okay, so as the question reads, first let's read the question. So here, industrial pollution of river water is a significant environmental issue in India, and discuss various mitigation measures to deal with this problem and also the government's initiative with respect to this particular pollution. Okay, so this is the question. It is actually a question where you have to write an answer for 150 words. Okay, so now in this particular question, when you read a question in the examination, you must always highlight the important terms, okay, in order to better understand the particular demand of this question. Okay, so first it is talking about industrial pollution of river water, how it has been an environmental issue. Major thing that you'll be writing will be on the industrial pollution of river water. Next, you'll be talking about the mitigation measures. Then they've asked about the government initiatives and measures. Okay, so these 3 things shall be written in an exam. Sorry, written in your answer, and how we will actually structure it is what we need to understand. So moving forward, any answer that you are going to approach in the examination consists of 3 parts. Okay, so basically 3 parts followed by the flow as well as presentation. So totally makes it 5. First is the introduction. What is the introduction? This actually makes you impress the examiner that you have understood the demand of the question. So here the demand of the question has to be understood. That's what here the demand of the question is what? The industrial pollution of river water. Have to write about the government initiatives and the mitigation strategies, isn't it? So this is what it is. Second one, this particularly sets the context to your further, that is before moving ahead with the entire answer, you are going to set a context or introduce them on what this topic is all about and how you're going about with the answer. So this can be of different types. Either you can actually provide definition of the particular topic, okay, or you can actually furnish a fact, okay, or you can state data from a report, or you can talk about the relevance of the event. Then you can actually give historical background of the particular event. So it can be of these many types. Okay, so this is the introduction, which is going to set the context to your answer. The next one obviously is the body of the answer, and this is where you will actually furnish or meet 90% of the demand of the question. Where, so since I told you 90% of demand of the question is met here, this portion actually will get you 90% of marks as well. So since this actually has the majority of weightage of your answer, what happens here, every point actually has to be substantiated. What do you mean by substantiation? You need to explain every point with subheading, with a lot of examples, case studies, the real life events, the recent incidents, current affairs, facts, reports, etc. So this is the portion where it has to be substantiated with examples as well as case studies. Next one is the conclusion. See, anything actually needs a closure, right? In life, be it a relationship, be it a project, be it a product, be it an answer, everything needs a closure. So, it will allow an examiner to understand that you have actually given the justification to the entire introduction and body in your conclusion. Okay, so this is what it is. This is the conclusion where you have to give a closure, where the examiner will again revisit the question. For example, if it is asked about river water pollution, you need to say, yes, of course, river water pollution has been causing significant environmental challenge in India, and curbing that through these mitigation strategies of the government will help India move towards achieving the sustainable development goals of 2030, something like that. Okay, because clean water and sanitation is a part of what? It is SDG number 6. So that is how you need to finish the answer. So closure is again provided. Next, in order to ensure that your introduction, body and conclusion are in place, the flow of the answer or the chronology of the events actually has to be placed in such a manner that it is presentable also. So the flow of the answer or your points actually has to be there. For example, if you've asked a question on gig economy without introducing what is gig economy in the introduction and discussing about the current status of gig economy in India, you cannot jump into the challenges as well as the way forward of the government initiatives or Niti Aayog's recommendation for the social security of gig economy and all those things. So here proper flow has to be there, and the presentation is what is very, very important whenever you approach any answer. Okay, your answer actually has to be very presentable, and this can be enhanced through any kind of infographic, or it can be a thematic what to say, it can be a map, or it can be a route diagram or a pie chart, etc. Okay, or it can be a graph, etc. So your presentation is important. So this is how you will actually approach this particular question. Now, for example, let's read the first question. So industrial pollution of river water is a significant environmental issue. So how do we start with the introduction? So that is very, very important. So let us move into understanding that portion. Okay. So introduction. If you look at this particular infographic, introduction has different components. The first one, it can be a definitional approach. Okay, definitional approach is nothing but you start with defining. Definitional approach is nothing but you start with defining this particular topic of river water pollution. So what do you mean by industrial pollution of river water? You start giving a definition for this particular topic. So here, since it's industrial pollution of river water, you will actually write about that as an environmental issue. Okay, that is what you will say. Then moving to the next one, it can be a current affairs context also. So what do you mean by this particular current affairs context. That is, you can write that of late river water, pollution or industrial pollution of river water has actually been in the news and has been causing significant threat or environmental challenges, degrading the quality of water. Okay, so you can actually say this, and also this is actually impacting the ecosystem. So that is one way of relating your current affairs context with this particular answer, so that you are informing the examiner, yes, I have read on this topic, now I'm going to give you the flow of the question. So that can be, so first one can be the definition, the second one can be current affairs context, next is the fact or the data, which is very very important, and this is the most impressive way, okay, of convincing the examiner that you are actually aware of this particular topic. For example, fact or data with respect to this industrial pollution of river water, you can say that according to the recent report of the Central Pollution Control Board, it has been found out that 350 rivers have been affected primarily by the industrial effluents that are released by the industries such as textiles, tanneries, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, etc. Okay, so how impressive has your introduction been? So this actually makes that you're prepared, you know about the fact. And you can also talk about, the NGT report, that is National Green Tribunal report of 2020. Okay, this actually has said that 96% of India's surface water is polluted by untreated effluents. Okay, so you can actually furnish these kind of data. Now moving forward, next is the relevance of the event. So what do you mean by relevance of the event as well as background and historical reference? So these two, that is number 4 and 5, that actually becomes more significant when you write history questions. Okay, for example, all the freedom movement has actually culminated in India achieving independence in 1947. So you can actually bring all that and give a historical background to it and then start the answer. So majorly relevance and background, it actually best suits your history answers. Okay, other than that, when questions on environment, geography or any static portion or current affairs come, you can start with the facts. That is the best idea. In case if you don't remember the fact, or if you're less prepared or confident about it, then give some current affair context, or you actually can give the definition of that particular topic that has been asked in the examination. So now we have actually learnt how we are going to write the introduction to this particular question. So introduction is done away with. Now moving to the body of the particular question. I told you that 90% of the demand of the question actually has to be furnished, or it has to be satisfied by you in this particular section, that is the body section. So what will be your body? Here you will be writing about the I'm sorry, we have switched to the next question. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, so in this particular question, what will be the body is that it has asked you to discuss various mitigation measures. Okay, so now we will be discussing about various mitigation measures. Yeah, so now we will be discussing about various mitigation measures. So your mitigation measures can be, so in the body, you will be talking about both the mitigation methods as well as the government initiatives in order to tackle the same. Okay, so here these are the two things that you will be dealing with in your body. So what are all your different mitigation methods is that first one, it can be by, say technological interventions, it can be regulatory interventions, or it can be community participation. So this I am discussing about the question itself. Okay, I'm talking about mitigation measures to deal with the industrial water pollution, river water pollution. So what are the technological interventions? See, there are different kinds of technological interventions. I don't want to take you through the technicality. I'm just basically teaching you how to approach the question. Okay, so this particular question first of all was in news because of late there has been lot of instances where excuse me, there have been a lot of instances where river water pollution, like Ganga pollution, that's why you have the Namami Gange, etc. Then Yamuna has been polluted because of, a lot of industrial effluents and discharge into the river. That is why this question has come in the news. So we've understood why the question has come in the news. Then we actually understand how to write an introduction with facts. Now we are going on to the body, where I actually spoke about discussing the various mitigation measures as well as the government initiatives. And mitigation measures can be technological, that is, you can actually involve technological interventions can be of different types. That is, you establish effluent treatment plants. Yeah, and here you can say, establishing an effluent treatment plant is actually mandatory for an industry according to the Water Pollution Act of 1974. That is one of the technological intervention. The second intervention can be what? Zero liquid discharge policy. So this has been, best in practice in, by the textile industries in Tamil Nadu. So you can actually give an example as well. That has been best followed in the state of Tamil Nadu by the textile industry. That is nothing but zero liquid discharge policy. The next one can be green technologies, that is involving techniques like bioremediation, where you actually use the microbes in order to make the organic or the inorganic waste into biodegradable ones. So use of bioremediation. So all these are the technological interventions. Next one, when it comes to regulatory interventions, what are all the policies and the regulations that have been brought by the government has to be discussed here. It can be the pollution control norms that has been brought about by the Central Pollution Control Board as well as the State Pollution Control Board. And also you have other things like, common effluent treatment plants. Again, here I told you effluent treatment plants over here. So all these things can actually be there. For example, if you see the norms, the NGT, that is the National Green Tribunal, had actually awarded in 2019 a penalty of rupees 5 crore on the industries that actually pollute the environment and which do not comply with it. Okay, so that can also be one of your regulatory measures. Next one finally is community participation. What do you mean by community participation? Here, this is where you actually have your social workers, and then you have the participation of the NGOs in actually determining and having accountability of the industries that release effluents into the river water. So now your body is actually almost done. So mitigation is actually done. What is the next part of your body? This is nothing but we will be talking about the government initiatives. So let us actually discuss few of the government initiatives where we will not be discussing in detail like the features of the program, the tenure, etc. But I would just want to make a passing reference that you have that sense of satisfaction that tomorrow, if anything on industrial pollution of river water comes, you will be able to pen it down. So the government initiatives, there are initiatives like the Namami Ganga, right? So this is one of the flagship initiative. The second one is the pollution control boards. They actually monitor the compliance of the industries. So that is also one thing. Next one, just like the corporate social responsibility, we have the corporate environmental responsibility, okay, where the industries that actually cause pollution will equally invest and contribute to the pollution control program also. So that is called as the corporate environment responsibility. Then you have the National Water Mission. Okay, so this is actually under National Action Plan on Climate Change. So this actually comes. So this focuses on ensuring the quality of water as well as preventing the industrial contamination of water. So here you are actually done with the mitigation measures, and next you have actually dealt with the government initiatives as well. So now moving on, how do you conclude your answer? See, conclusion should also be as rich as your introduction. So this actually gives a justification to the examiner that you have met the demand of the question. Now you are giving a closure to it. So the best way to conclude any answer is to actually relate it with some of the SDGs. And it has to be related to any of the international convention or any kind of an agreement India is actually part of. So over here, if you see, clean water and sanitation is a part of SDG 6. So this is what you will actually mention here, okay. So conclude it with the way forward and say that, despite the efforts by the government, environmental pollution is on the rise. So the mitigation measures has actually have to be implemented in order to bring India closer, one step closer to achieving its SDG by 2030 of clean water and sanitation, ensuring the environmental, welfare as well as preservation of biodiversity, ecosystem, etc. So this is how you actually conclude this particular answer. So basically, to sum it up, any answer must first have an introduction. It should have a body introduction. Specifically, it can be a fact, okay, so that they know that you're well informed, and in the body you can actually look at the major things that have been asked in the examination, in the question, that is mitigation in the government initiatives. Substantiate, give examples. In case of polity questions, you have to give case studies, you have to give case laws when it actually happened, examples, and then in conclusion you have to connect it to the SDG, that is a sustainable development goals, or you can even give the best practices. For example, if Denmark has a best sewage system or a best effluent protection system, all those things, if Denmark actually has it, say that India has to go by the standards that have been adopted by Denmark in order to curtail this environmental pollution. So now we are done with the first question. So now let us actually move to the second one. Second one actually talks about what role do the environmental NGOs, okay, so non-governmental organizations are there. These, that is, the name itself suggests that these are not government entities, okay, but they need the government's approval for their establishment and functioning, right? So what are the role? NGOs are actually dedicated for different purposes, okay. One is to ensure social security of the citizens, women, children, etc., and one set of NGOs are also there in order to ensure that there is environmental sustainability, or prevention of environmental degradation. So what role do environmental NGOs and activists play in influencing the environmental impact assessment? Because this entire topic is directly mentioned in your syllabus, that's why the question, okay. And in what way they play in impacting the outcomes of the EIA for major projects in India. Cite 4 examples with all the important details. So here basically you need to talk about environment impact assessment, and then you need to talk about the role of NGOs in curbing the same. Next you need to cite 4 examples with important details, okay. So here you need to prepare notes on NGOs which are there for different genres. One is for governance, next is for social sector, next is for environment, etc. Okay, so this is how you need to prepare. So how do we actually give the introduction for this? So here we will actually give an introduction about what is environmental impact assessment is all about, okay. So this is nothing but it is a measure, or we can actually say it is a crucial tool which is there in order to measure the degree of the environmental consequences that a project will actually cause before it is being before it is actually approved. So this is what is environmental impact assessment. That is nothing but, for example, an industry has to be established in a particular area, okay. So looking at what are all the environmental impacts, that is, what is the impact it is going to cause on the environment, and what is it going to cause on the local population. Local population as in their rehabilitation, what impact it's going to have on their livelihood, what's going to have on the forest produce, okay. So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and whether it is going to affect the air, the water around them, the soil, etc. And if it is going to affect, what are going to be the measures or the compensation that's going to be given. All this will be analyzed in this process of environmental impact assessment. So that is what in the introduction you will discuss about shortly what is environmental impact assessment. And in the body, what we'll discuss, obviously we'll discuss about various NGOs that are responsible in order to ensure the environmental sustainability, right? Before that, you need to talk about role, right? They have asked how NGOs actually help in changing the outcomes of the environment impact assessment. Let's actually see. The first one, it brings about the public awareness as well as participation. Okay, so it actually informs the general public, or it actually informs that local population about what impact this particular project is actually going to bring. The second one is it can legally intervene. Okay, so it can actually intervene in the, and have the industries accountable for its actions. So the legality. The next one is it actually undertakes research, and there are lot of expert opinions whether it is good or suited for a particular area or not. The next one is monitoring, and it actually brings about accountability and transparency. So this is what is the role that actually the NGOs as well as the activists play, okay, in the environmental impact assessment outcomes. The next one, what are all the examples, right? They have actually asked that cite 4 examples with all the important details. So let us actually see few examples. The first example is Narmada. These are just examples. There are a lot of NGOs, okay, that have done, stood up for the, lot of a number of causes, okay. First one is Narmada Bachao Andolan. So this was actually headed by a social activist, that is Medha Patkar. Okay. So here what happens is that it actually talks about the environmental concerns of the dams and the impact it is going to have on the Narmada river. Okay. So here this is what it is actually saying, and it actually ensures that proper rehabilitation is actually given for the people who reside in that vicinity. The next one is the Silent Valley movement, and this actually took place in Kerala. Okay, so here there were the NGOs actually interrupted over here, and the environmentalists also interrupted a project that was supposed to be undertaken in the Silent Valley, and they waited until the Silent Valley was actually given the status of national park in 1985. So these good examples have to be cited. Okay, the next one is the Posco Street Steel project. Next is what? It's the POSCO steel project that actually had to be undertaken there. This was facing a lot of opposition from the local public and etc. So here the clearance was actually it took a lot of time for the clearance of this particular project. Next one is the Kudamkulam project. Okay, this is the Kudamkulam nuclear power project. This is actually in Tamil Nadu, and also Sterlite. So these are the projects that actually saw the intervention of local NGOs. The name of the local NGO over here is MDMK. They intervened to actually check the environmental sustainability of the project and what would be the possible repercussions that this will actually have on the people as well as the environment. So this is what it is. So now we have actually discussed about what is the role of the NGO. And also we've discussed about the activists, how does that influence the EIA outcome for major projects in India. And we've also cited few examples, okay. Now, towards the conclusion, what you write, you need to write a balanced conclusion, right? So, SDGs, can we relate this to SDGs? Life on planet, but that is not very relevant to this one. So, there has to be conservation of the environment. If you can relate it to the SDGs, it's okay. Or else you can write a conclusion that, environmental NGOs and activists definitely do play an important role in maintaining the environmental sustainability and, influencing the EIA outcomes. And then, by facilitating public participation, monitoring, implementation, and also challenges various aspects of the process that is actually involved, and their efforts contribute to ensuring environmental sustainability of the region. This is how you can actually finish this particular answer. Now, having discussed this particular answer, we can move to the next one. So this is our GS advanced course. So apart from our daily news analysis as well as question paper analysis, we have a lot of other courses which are actually coming. Of course, here we have the Navigator magazine, where we actually have curated the content according to the UPSC standards, because you can actually see a number of questions, that is role of NGOs, that is now what we have discussed, that we have covered in the magazine, okay, and also a number of other disaster management questions, like we have question on urban floods, and then we also have questions on what to say, narco terrorism. We also have a lot of questions like simultaneous elections, etc., where the entire dimension has been covered from A to Z in our magazine. So this way we actually know that we are relevant with respect to our content. So please do consume this particular product, as well as our other best products are actually the GS Advanced course, as well as we have books as well that have been curated, and they've been updated and integrated with the current affairs. This will further enhance your preparation, and we have what to say, admissions that are actually going on, which is integrated IAS as well as degree, and the qualification or the eligibility is your completion of your 12th class. Okay, so let's move forward to the next question that we'll be dealing with. So this is another question. Again, we've actually recently discussed this particular question in one of our DNA videos. If you recall our discussion on disaster mitigation, disaster adaptation, and disaster resilience. Okay, so with respect to disaster management, this particular question has been asked. Let's see what the question is. What is disaster resilience and how is it determined? So for that you need to know what is disaster resilience, okay? So if you actually can recall any kind of a definition that has been given by the United Nations Environment Program, or you have the Hugo framework. According to that, whether a community or a person or the organization is actually, learning from the past experiences and keeping the environment sustainable for the future generations to actually use it. That is actually called as disaster resilience. So here, let me read to you a proper definition that has been given by the Hugo framework for action. Let me write it down. It is the Hugo framework for action. So this actually says that disaster resilience is actually determined by the degree by which individual, the community, the public and private organizations are capable of organizing themselves to learn from the past disasters and reduce their risks to the future ones. It's more or less in lines with the sustainable development. Okay, we need to learn from our past experiences and make sure that we actually prevent such instances from occurring in order to have a safe future and reduce the risk for the future ones at the international level, national level, regional level, and the local level. So this has been given by UNISDR. Okay, so this is 2005. So this is the definition. So this is how your introduction should actually be very rich. Okay, so this is how you deal with it. So here you spoke about what is disaster resilience, how it is determined. So here you need to mention about, so in the body you will be talking about the determinants of disaster resilience. So can you tell me what can be the possible determinants of disaster resilient? So first one is the capacity to absorb the shocks. Okay. So what is disaster resilience? Because we are becoming more prepared, right? So here the capacity to absorb shocks. That is, if you see how Japan is actually ready to take up the occurrence of earthquakes, right? So that is called as the capacity to absorb shocks. Example is Japan with respect to that of earthquakes. The second one can be what is the speed of recovery of this particular region. Here you can say, in 2018, there has been, major swift floods in Kerala. So how quickly Kerala had actually recovered from this one. So that is also one of the determinant of this disaster resilience. Next one is how they easily adapt. So A and L. So adaptation and learning from their past experiences, because that is what we saw over here as well, right? So it is adaptation and learning. For example, after the cyclone in Odisha, how they have now adapted to it and what is the learning that's actually come. Okay, so what are the measures they have taken in order to prevent coastal flooding, etc., is a part of this one. Next one, what is the institutional capacity that has actually been developed in this particular region? For example, you have installation of very good early warning systems in Bangladesh, and even now here you had the X-band radar that has actually been recently launched in the Wayanad district of Kerala following the landslides and the floods. So such examples you need to give so that they know that you are very, very relevant and suitable for this examination. Okay, so next, this is what is the institutional capacity. Next one is the engagement. Any answer you write, please bring about this point, that is community engagement, where you have various NGOs. For example, after the flash floods or the cloud burst that actually happened in Uttarakhand, there was community participation. Okay, so this is what it is. Now what happened in the introduction, you spoke about, you defined what disaster resilience is all about. In the body, now you're talking about how it is determined, and here they are actually asking you to describe various elements of this particular framework. Okay, and also, we actually also mentioned the global targets of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. Very, very important. Okay. Just as how your SDGs are important, these Sendai framework as well as agreements are also equally important. So, we'll be discussing about that. Now, moving forward, so after discussing about determinants, now we will move forward in order to understand the elements of disaster resilience. So what are the elements? I am not sure if you are able to see this, but let me tell you. The first one, you're resilient to what? You're resilient of what? Whether a social group is actually being resilient towards something, whether a particular region is resilient towards something, or an institution is resilient towards something. So this is actually the element of this particular disaster resilience. Next one, you are resilient to what? Whether any kind of stress or shocks that actually arise due to some kind of a natural disaster, whether it is due to insecurity in a particular region, whether there is actually high fuel prices, whether there is food inflation. So whether you are resilient towards this particular disaster or not. This is actually the second one. So first element is your context. Okay, so which group is being affected, that is your context. The next one is the disturbance. Okay, that is what kind of disturbance is actually caused, to which you have to be very resilient to, whether it is food inflation or insecurity, insurgency, internal conflict, all these things. Next, moving forward, capacity. So what is that region's capacity or an institution's capacity to deal with it? Okay, that is exposure, sensitivity and adaptive capacity. This is divided into three. See, these three are not that important, but still you need to know. Okay, so here, are they able to bounce back better? Are they able to bounce back? Whether they are actually able to recover better than before or worse than before. And next one is to collapse. So all this is the capacity to deal with the disturbance. And finally, reaction to the disturbance, whether you are actually surviving, whether you are coping up, whether you are bouncing back, and whether you are able to learn and transform, whether you are better prepared for the next or any kind of unprecedented catastrophe that will actually happen. So this is what is the different element. After determinants, we've discussed about elements also. Now moving forward, let's discuss about what is this Sendai framework that was actually that came into existence in 2015, and it actually goes on till 2030, right? So what is a Sendai framework? It actually is a set of global targets in order that is actually mandated for disaster risk reduction. Okay, so it was actually brought into force in the year 2015 and extends to 2030. So now let us actually read that one by one. This is a set of targets in order to deal with this, reduce the disaster mortality. Okay, how? Through sustainably reducing the global disaster mortality by 2030, aiming to lower the average mortality rate. Next one, it actually what to say, reduce the number of affected people. It actually tries to reduce the economic losses, also protect the critical infrastructure that is essential for the functioning of an economy. Next one, it actually focuses on the national and local disaster risk strategies. Also, it actually aims at enhancing the international cooperation on how India can become better in dealing with all this. Next one, increase the early warning systems, just as how Bangladesh has done in the recent launching of the Expand radar in Wayanad. So here we've actually finished discussing the body part. So introduction has been given, the body has been done away with, and now we need to give the conclusion. Obviously, here disaster management, you have resilience as well as sustainable cities, right? That actually comes under SDG 11. So by following these principles, India can come closer to SDG 11 in order to become disaster risk free or disaster resilient. So this is how you will actually complete this particular answer. So I hope this answer is actually, it served enough justice for you to understand what it is. Now let us quickly move to the last question of the day, that is of our discussion, that is flooding in urban areas. That is, it's actually talking about the major floods. Okay, so flooding in urban areas is an emerging climate. 1 minute. So here it is asking, flooding in the urban areas is an emerging climate induced disaster. Okay, understood. So they are talking about urban flooding. Very, very important. Okay, so this has actually been in news for a long time, because in 2016 Chennai had a huge flood. Okay, so this has been asked in the backdrop of that also, might be. So let us see. Flooding in urban areas is an emerging climate induced disaster. Discuss the causes of this disaster. Very simple, they are asking about urban floods, they are asking about causes of the urban flood, and then they are asking about instances of two such major floods. Okay, so one is the Chennai flood of 2015-16, and also the huge Kerala flood which actually happened in 2018. This is because majorly because of encroachment of wetlands and all those things, because people actually were rehabilitated or they had constructed in the water catchment areas. So that was because of this. And also, it was because of the failure of the drainage systems in certain areas of Chennai, and also rapid urbanization. So this is what it is. So you'll be discussing about the causes and also features of the two major floods, why it happened, how much of loss it has actually incurred economically and socially, that is how many people have died. And this is the one. And what is the economic cost of it? Describe the policies and frameworks in India that aim at tackling such floods. Very straightforward, right? So now, how will you actually start this particular, question? What will be the introduction to this particular question? I think with this we are finishing the discussion, right? This is the last question. Yeah. So here you can sometimes, when you have no idea about any kind of the recent flood event or anything, you don't remember about the definition also, you can say flooding of late has become a huge problem, specifically in the urban areas. India having, expanding, or you can say they have a rapid expansion of the urbanization. What happens, this urban flooding has actually become a disaster. Okay, and it is also because of the impact of climate change, and here this is all more because of the erratic rainfall. Again, you can actually relate to that of the anthropological activities, excessive release of GHG, then warming of the temperature, increasing sea surface temperature, excessive flooding, all those things you can actually relate and start this particular answer. Now we will move on to discuss about in the body. Majorly you need to discuss about what the cause is. Where is it? Here you will be discuss. So here you are telling about, you have given an introduction. You are now going to talk about causes of this particular disaster and features of the two floods. That is actually going to be in your body. So these 2 points will be your body, and next one is the policies and frameworks in India will also be a part of your body. So now moving forward. So these are the causes of urban floods. I'm not sure if you're able to view this. Yes. So these are all the causes of urban floods. Okay. So the first one is, yeah, so these are the causes of urban floods. We have actually classified that based on the meteorological factors as well as the human induced factors, that is the anthropogenic factors. So what are the meteorological factors? Definitely it is because of the heavy rainfall. Next one, it is because of the cyclonic storms and thunderstorms. Okay, so that actually brings heavy rainfall and it causes rapid runoff. So that is one. Next one is climate change, because the frequency of extremities of the rainfall, floods, etc. is actually increasing. Next is also the sea level rise, okay, specifically in the coastal cities like Chennai, Kerala, etc. Moving forward, the anthropogenic factors actually includes rapid urbanization and expansion of cities. Okay, so more the pollution you have, more private vehicles, more pollution, there's a lot of congestion, when industrial effluents are released, so a lot of pollution is actually there, be it air, marine pollution, etc. Next one, floodplain occupation and obstruction, and this was the major reason for the floods in Chennai that actually took place in 2015-16. Next is urban heat island effects. Okay, so when a heat island is actually formed over an area, what happens is that it results in the weather patterns and also results in erratic rainfall. Okay, sometimes the intensity of rainfall in a short period of time will be too high. Okay, so that is called as erratic rainfall. Next one, the operations of dams, that is there will be sudden release of you know dams, okay, sudden release of water from the dams which will flood the urban areas. Next is improper waste disposal. So this is nothing but the drains are actually clogged and that also results in flooding. Next one is illegal mining activities, where the river beds, the sand is actually mined and this changes the course and also alters the speed of the water flow. So these are the major causes of, yeah, so these are the major causes of urban floods. Now to discuss about what are the two important events that has actually happened in the recent past is that, first I already told you about the Chennai floods that actually took place in 2015. This is because of encroachment of wetlands and then breakage of the drainage system. Then you had rapid urbanization. Then we had occupation of floodplains. All these were reasons, okay. So Chennai flood, the major causes were these. And then what happened, the impact is how many million people it actually affected, what is the kind of death toll that actually took place, and then what was the response, and the response by the government, and what was the rescue and the relief fund that was allocated by the government that further cost a lot of money, right, economical burden. So this is what is the Chennai flood. The next example is the floods of Kerala that actually took place in 2018. So this was actually due to a lot of anthropogenic factors. Like first one was deforestation. So it was deforestation, then unregulated construction in the flood prone areas. Next one is poor management of dams, and also unregulated construction we were also spoken about. So these were actually the reasons for the major floods in Kerala as well, and also how much, around 30,000 crores or more than that was the economic cost for this particular disaster that actually took place. So now we've actually discussed about in the last 2 decades what were the major flood instances. So this is also we have actually completed. Now, we need to quickly discuss about what have been the government measures in order to curtail the urban flooding in India. So, what are all the basic government measures? Let's quickly just go through them. The first one is there have been standard operating procedures, okay, for urban flooding. That was actually, so standard operating procedure for urban flooding, that was actually brought about in the year 2017 by the Ministry of Urban Development, okay. This was the first one. The second one, there is Amrut Mission. Okay, so here this is with respect to sustainable urban development, okay. So this is what is the second one. Then also you have the Amrit Sarovar mission, okay, Amrit Sarovar mission. The next one you have National Disaster Management Authority guidelines on how to prevent and be adapting, or what to say, resilient to that of the urban floods. Also, you have the Jal Shakti Abhiyan that actually focuses on rainwater harvesting and groundwater discharge. Okay, so Jal Shakti Abhiyan, and then you have the model building laws, model building bylaws of 2016. So these are all the examples, I mean you can say the initiatives that have been brought about by the government, okay. So again, here sustainable cities. So here we have actually discussed about the introduction and the body also. And now towards the conclusion, you need to talk about sustainable cities is actually related to SDG 11. So India actually moves a step closer towards SDG 11. So this is what is the discussion, and it has actually come to an end. The first discussion we spoke about environment, and we actually the river pollution, and since clean water and sanitation is a part of SDG 6, we've mentioned SDG 6. Next, we actually spoke about environmental impact assessment, where we discussed about different facets and how different NGOs actually help. Next one is disaster resilience, where again we actually spoke about SDG 11 only. How do you actually have to focus on disaster resilience? And the final one is the urban flooding. Again, to maintain sustainable cities, you need to quote the SDG goals. So these were a very brief discussion about the questions that have actually appeared in your UPSC CSE examination. So our N Digital app is actually available, and also we have various other practices, like you can actually submit your answers where it is AI evaluated and you're given timely feedback. So this is the daily answer writing, that is as well as the Anugati. We actually have a portal, where we have a portal as well as a website where you have all the content of your daily DNA, the DNR, and the recorded sessions of your grant test, the practice questions, the doubt solving questions, all of them are available. You can actually, and also that you can actually access them. And also, in case of any doubts with respect to the discussions that we had in our DNA as well as the recent discussion of the PYQ analysis, you can always reach out to us, as the R&D team is always happy to actually extend a helping hand to all of you in order to enhance your preparation and for you to qualify this particular examination. So thanks all of you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel for more such live videos as well as updates. Thank you.